Hey there, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Real Wise Productions. This is Brandy J with Behind the Mic with my awesome guest again. Or not, I wouldn't even say guest. I would say co-host, fellow podcaster, all that, and then some with Quincy from Talking Q, right? Do I ever say it right? The Talking Q podcast, or is it radio?
Talk to Q.
Talk to Q. I've been
Yes.
messing up people's names. Forgive me, America. I really do. I really do. It's no excuse, though. It really isn't. How you doing, Quincy?
Doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Just trying to survive in this weird world
Just weird about the day.
by the day. I'm like, is this really happening? This is Twilight Zone, right? Yeah. But thank you for joining me today.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, anytime, anytime. Always a pleasure. I check out your show. I usually know it's going when I see across TikTok, and I'm like, oh, that's neat. So I love your topics and stuff. So that's why I like having you on because you have a very you can. Some people don't have the patience to sit with, like for instance. I'm not gonna go there because rest in peace and all. But I know you've noticed the controversy now, before, during, with the late Kevin Samuels, and
And
just what's your take on it?
yeah, he's always been controversial, but it seems like his once his brand grew and more people found out about him, he became more infamous. And the more infamous he became, the more people who really kind of helped make him even more popular.
Hmm.
Because people love to hate people, and so he was an easy target for a lot of people, especially women. And as his popularity grew and his message grew, then it just caused a lot of problem in different relationship communities, so to speak, as far as how we should look at dating, how men should look at women, or how women should look at themselves, and things of that nature, as far as Kevin was concerned. So it was a pretty big deal, and I mean, it's tragic that
Yeah,
things came to an end the way it did.
yeah. That's very. I was like in shock. I was talking to a first time. She's going to be a guest, and we referenced to him about something, and she was like, she mentioned something, and I was just like, what are you talking about? She was like, you don't know? I said, no. I was like, what are you talking about? So I just was listening to him. I felt like he was in my living room the other day because I fell asleep. The same show was still on. It was about black women and why do they hate him. He opened up the floor to that for people to call in. But when she
Okay.
told me that, I was just like, I almost for a minute, I almost, you know what I mean, like because it was just so sudden. Like that man lost his life. Oh, look at what we got up in here, the building. Mr. El Jefe, wise. But
I didn't want to come in.
we'll say hi anyway. You here? You came up here.
What's
Hello,
going on, man?
hello.
How you
What's
doing?
going on, Q? How you been?
Been doing pretty well, man. Long time no see.
Yes, brother. Looking
You
good,
stopping
man.
by?
Looking good.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You staying or you stopping by? You gonna stay?
I'm just stopping by. I just finished recording. I'm about to
Okay.
go go do a couple of things
Well, thank you for coming through. You know
later.
you need to come
But
up here. You know you did.
I didn't know you was recording. Seriously, I didn't know it was you. I just want to see who was.
Behind the mic.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Peace.
Right. That is Mr. El Jefe Wise from Stuck in My Mind podcast, everybody, but you knew that. But I guess when she told me that, Quincy, I ain't gonna lie. I wasn't like a big old fan. I didn't hate him or anything like that, but I almost cried because it took me, I was so taken back, like, oh my God. Because you wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah, I didn't believe it at first because the internet loves to kill people.
Yeah.
And so I didn't believe it at first. So it took a couple of days before I realized that it was actually true. And I don't wish death upon anyone. As far as Kevin's reputation, I realized why a lot of people disliked him. It doesn't mean that everything he said was not true, because a lot of what he said, you can apply it in certain situations. However, I guess it's just one of those deals where if you don't agree with people on certain things or have a certain outlook as they do, then they'll vilify you for it. And so there were people that were actually celebrating his death more than anything. And I just can't really celebrate anybody's death. That's just not
Right.
me.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I couldn't believe it actually when when they were saying that. They was just like good. Then I actually heard it and saw it myself, and I was just like, where they do that at? Like, what did he do to you that much? Where you know, it must have applied so much with things that he was saying to these people. They must have really felt away. But I mean, that's a whole nother level. Um, I will say though, I tried to really like, I didn't, because you know how some people will put you on that like, oh, you just saying that because I'm siding with the women or I feel a certain way. You know what I mean? No, they
Yeah.
feel a certain way. They was like dancing about his death. No, I just have an opinion or the way I see it, and I also took it upon myself because I used to just see clips too. And I remember he was talking one day, and he was talking to the woman. He was like, "Ma'am," he said, "Have you watched a whole show, or are you just watching clips? You know, they can make things look any kind of way." And I listened to him. I said, "You got a point. You got a point." So I'll give you okay. I'll do you a favor. I'll watch. You know, before I even attempt to say anything or have an opinion or a thought. So that's what I did. I still felt the same way. I understood him a little bit more. And he did say, he said, I'm an image consultant. He said, I am no therapist, no nothing. I'm not here to be your friend or to coddle you. You know what I mean? He was very
Hmm.
honest about that. Right. But
Yeah.
I didn't like the way I felt away about it didn't apply to me. I didn't take it like it was personal because I'm not fitting in that category. I'm like at any time, anywhere, I have a different story. And just because I'm a woman doesn't mean all of us fit in that category together. But I watched those women's faces. I would look at them a lot to see how it was making them feel or how he'd make them feel a certain way. Like, man, you're not a size 8. Like, come on, yo. You know what I mean? Like, how old are you? Like, already just ready going in on her. And I felt empathetic for her because I'm like, you're humiliating this woman, even if she was delusional. Some of them were. But,
Yeah.
you know, the
And
delivery would have been different.
his delivery was, oh my goodness, was as direct as it gets, you know. And so even if he told someone something factual, it would be taken the wrong way.
Mhm.
And I had someone tell me one time, you can take a person's favorite food, but if you sell it, excuse me, if you give it to them on the lid of a garbage can, they're not going to eat it,
Right.
you know. And that's what he was doing. He was taking something that was true, but because of how he was giving it to you, you didn't want to take it. And so there were times where I agree with him. There were times when I thought he was completely wrong. He generalized a lot. He bought into a lot of stereotypes, and part of me wonders what he actually believed and what he actually did just to grow his brand.
Yeah.
Because you know, you look at like Kardashians and you know, like, and people like Kevin Samuel, they don't care if they're liked. They just want to be popular to make money. And
Mhm.
so again, it goes back to the whole phrase term of being infamous. You know, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you grow your brand and make your money. So a lot of it could have been for an act just to build his brand. We'll never know probably, but
Yeah.
I just think it's a shame that if you, I just think it's a shame that you're not allowed in today's society to partially agree with someone.
Right. Gotta be one side.
Either, you know, if you tell somebody, well, I like the color blue, and if they like the color red, all of a sudden you're enemies. It's like, why can't we just like what we like,
Yeah.
or you know, or see things differently? But now, if you say anything nice about Kevin Samuels, people will go in on you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I understand completely with everything you just said because I felt that way too. Like, you know, and then I had to ask myself, am I giving it full? Like, I'm not thinking this way or going to say this to just appease one, you know? Like, you got to be true to yourself. And I'm like, well, these are my thoughts. They're valid. But you see how that in society, how you're not allowed, you know, even like with voting and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, I can vote for who I want to. It's my choice. Because I was still doing that too. Like, wait, because you're black, that should never be the issue because you're black, you should only vote for this. Like, no, you're a person and your views just might be different. Plain and simple. Let's move on. But I had to ask myself, was I doing that so that I wouldn't get from the other side? And then I was just like, well, how am I going to have anybody to understand where I'm coming from if I don't stick to my path or whatever? And yeah, you can't. And because I don't agree, I agreed with some, but
Yeah,
not all. Because it's not like
yeah,
and most of the people, Quincy, didn't even watch his stuff. They've only probably heard of him or watched a little clip
exactly,
here and there, right? But I didn't like
exactly.
how he spoke to these women. I really didn't. I didn't like it, and that's all.
Yeah,
I just didn't like it.
and some of the things he said were kind of rooted in old school tradition.
Mhm.
Like for example, he said that women who have never been married and they're over the age of 35 are leftover women. So
Right.
leftover, right? It
Mhm.
means that if a guy meets you and you're over 35, never married, he's going to immediately think something's wrong with you or something like that. And you have some women who just don't feel like being married. I mean, that's just
Right.
what it is. Or maybe they were focusing on a career, or you have many reasons why you can be 35 or older and not married. Now, back in the 60s, yeah, it may have been some truth to that because, there was a lot of women were homemakers and things of that nature. So if a woman in the 60s was over 35 and never married, then yeah, maybe people will look at her differently, but not in today's society. I don't think that's the case. I
Yeah.
think maybe older men, like even much older than me, may look at it that way, but I don't think anyone cares about that for the most part. So there were things that he said that may have been rooted in truth for a certain era, or maybe at one time may have been true. But again, like I said, if you listen to him and take your feelings out of it, then you can kind of make sense of what he's saying, even if you
Yeah.
don't agree with it. You know where
Very
he's coming
true.
from.
Yeah. You hit it right on the head. Take your feelings out of it. Because when you come with feelings, then you're not gonna hear the way. That's how you're able to take critical, you know what I mean, criticism and all that stuff. Because
Hmm.
you get all like, so yeah, you got, and that's what I see a lot of people doing it. Because when you answer stuff or you like in a mode, like say for instance, I don't know how you feel about the response, like how he affected, because he didn't. And I wanted to say this too, also for a lot of men, because a lot of men were like, I don't think like that. I didn't agree with him. You know what I mean? Just like how a lot of women are like, I did. That's not, you know what I mean? Me, first of all,
Hmm.
that really isn't. And a lot of men were like, don't tie me to that. That just because that's a whole, doesn't mean all of us are feeling that way. So I know that, but there's a bunch of them. And with all due respect, that's their business, what they decided, who they wanted to listen to. It's your choice. I just hope you do it with a grain of salt. And remember who comes first. And that would be if you're not following the big guy, I ain't rocking with you like that. I'm not following you a damn place.
Hmm.
Not saying that he wasn't, but I'm just saying that's how I make my choices, right? Because
Right.
I didn't hear him at all in topic. Maybe I didn't catch that episode, but all I'm saying is I didn't catch that episode. But I know there's a lot of men that are upset that same day when I had inboxed you and I was watching it at the same time, like all this live, and they
Hmm.
was having groups like passionate about it, like calling in, like we're gonna carry his name on and yada yada
Yeah.
yada and all this stuff. And I'm just listening and taking, not criticizing. Maybe I'm not seeing it, I'm see their perspective and all that stuff. But then later it hit me. I was like, something don't feel right. I said, this could be a problem. I said, God, I said, help me to find the words before I just start talking. Like, what is it that I see? And what I see is, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you can help me here.
Okay.
Like, like hatred, kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, they're not just like finding out that they are more, they should require more from themselves and of the white type of women. I guess they were saying like high value men and all this stuff. But
Hmm.
it's more of like at the same time you finding yourself, but you looking over here like, you know what I mean? You kind of looking at like women, because they use that word, Quincy, black women, and I feel it like it's toxic. Black women, like what the.
Yeah. And that's just a generalization of things that's unfortunate for the black community. People want to lump black women together whenever they discuss problems and things, or things of a negative nature.
Mhm.
And it's sad. I don't know exactly how we overcome it. I mean, of course, shows like this definitely helps when you can educate people on how to think for themselves, and that's the biggest problem. People don't know how to think for themselves. They look for others to tell them how to think. And so, as far as black women are concerned, I, not a lot has changed with the black woman aside from having to do a lot more on her own. Okay. Now, as far as the reason for that, I'm not going to say, it's the white man's fault, it's the black men's fault, or I mean, it's a combination of a bunch of different things. Okay. And so, and so many people want to base their ideologies on a different time. You know, that time is of like my parents were born in the 40s. All of that, that's over. That's been over for 40, 30 years now. Okay, things are different. We have to look at things differently. And we can't take put a magnifying glass on how people lived in the 50s and 60s and apply it to now. We're in 2022, and so you have a lot of guys who they want to be judgmental of women based on a concept that's been gone for 30, 40 years. And we have to get away from that. And we have to learn how to uplift each other and not try to have leverage on one another and things of that nature when it comes to relationships and dealing with each other. And it's actually sad. And that's what allows people like Kevin to thrive. Okay. Being able to divide people and build an argument in which to promote a brand. And so while I respect his hustle and his craft and his ability that he used to build his brand, I mean, that's to be respected in my opinion. I didn't always like the message. I didn't always like the delivery. But by the same token, when he said something that was right, I would nod my head, be like, you know what? Okay, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, very much so. I noticed that he also kept referring, which people are saying that he kept referring a lot, and especially like in one certain show, letting women know that they were going to die alone. Like they said one time, he just kept saying it and kept referring to it, and then they said now, just because you have somebody with you, you can still be alone because you don't know them like that well. And they were saying how that's there. People were questioning like, was he alone or who was he with before we found out, the actual details. Like how was that? Like what was going through his mind and all that. And we'll never know. You know what I mean? But I mean that stands out a lot. That's what he kept telling people.
Yeah, and see, and I disagree with that. And again, it's one of those things where I get what he's trying to say, because one of the things he discussed on his show is how he said that the reason a lot of women are single or they can't find the man they're looking for is that you have 100% of the women trying to date a group of 10% of a group of men. All right, because he said he always talked about how women had high expectations. They want a man to make $100,000 a year, a man that's 6 feet tall, and all this stuff. And he says, well, when you narrow it down, only 8% of the male population fits that criteria. So therefore, you have 100% of women trying to date 8% of men, and that's why so many people are going to die alone. And again, it's like, I get what he's saying, but when you factor in how it's delivered and things of that nature, it just makes a big mess. It just creates a big mess.
Yeah, it messes up your message because that delivery and they didn't receive. That's why I always feel like you gotta take regard, like how people hear or listen, or you have to care about the other person on the other side of that delivery of that message, because the delivery can screw it all up because not everybody receives the same. They definitely don't receive when they feel attacked or offended, or when you're yelling, nobody gets the message. So it's like, if you really are sincere about this, then you want to make sure your message is effective and it gets across exactly the way you want it to. So you have to take some regard into that, or you're just here wasting your time if you're not going to package it up, and deliver it right.
Because if something applies to a person, a lot of times they can't take those emotions out and understand and listen to what's being said. And because emotions and logic cannot exist in the same place. And some of the things he said, like I said, made sense. But when you insult someone as you try to teach them something, even if you're right, it's not going to work. It's not going to work in most cases. I mean, maybe that's something that worked in the military back in the day when they used to scream at the privates,
right,
insult them and to get them to do better. But nah, that's not going to work in today's society at all.
Yeah, so true. But do you notice how, like, I don't know for you, or if you notice or ever experienced or see, like within our community, the Black community, how we do seem to tear each other down. I've started to notice people doing videos and talking about this type of stuff, and like how this is how we talk, you know, I mean, where I'm from. And then when we come over here, they were showing like the correlating the difference between other culture or white people, and then like how black people talking when the white person comes across you, they'd be like, why are you talking to me, you know, like nicer, or because they expect us to be like over the top and kind of rugged and rough and all that stuff. But when you really look at it, people do. They be like, get your ass, this and that, you know, like we kind of like, and we go there, we tear each other, you know, and it kind of plays a part too. Like, I know, I get it where a lot of men come from. Like, please don't speak to me like that when a woman sometimes get out of, you know, in public and then just talk to you like you want him to be a man, but you're talking to him like less than a man, and then you're doing it in front of everybody. We just have that tendency. But could it be from what you came from, like what you've been around, you think? And that's why it's just kind of like, what, this is what we do.
And I think part of it, well, I think a lot of it is culture, and respect is a lost art, because I think everything should be rooted in respect, and it's not. The reason people talk the way they do to one another without any type of second thought is because they don't have the respect for the person that they should.
Right.
And as a man, yeah, I don't like, you know, I wouldn't like a woman to talk to me any kind of way, but by the same token, I don't want some dude to feel like he can talk to me any kind of way. I want that basic respect. And people feel compelled now to tear you down in order to make themselves feel better. All right. That's the only reason why reality TV ever made it, you know, from back in the day when reality TV first really kicked off around 2000, 2001 or whatever. We saw people at their worst at a lot of times, you know, and it made us feel better about ourselves. And we watch shows like Jerry Springer or Maury Povich, you know, or yeah, I mean, all that stuff. And we see people, we're like, oh man, they are really just going through it right now. That person's in bad shape. And it's like, now we apply that to our lives through social media. So we're constantly tearing someone else down to make ourselves feel better, or we think that it affords us some sort of leverage over the other person that we can use to control them as far as relationships go. And it's just a really warped way of thinking that so many people have actually turned their lives into reality TV. And I mean, although I don't think it's social media's fault, I think social media, when used properly, is an awesome tool. I think it's the fact, though, we weren't taught to use social media. You know, we didn't have classes or anything to teach us how to manage that, how to manage our privacy when it comes to social media, not overshare and things of that nature. And so now we get on here and we think we're movie stars ourselves, the way we act with the pictures and some of the things we say, and that's not really the case. And it's just whole false sense of reality that we've created, that's really bringing down, well, as far as Black people are concerned, the Black community is really putting a bigger wedge in between Black men and Black women when we need each other now more than ever.
More than ever. Yep. You're right. And that's another reason why I wanted to do this too, because it's like we got to move forward. And if we have these platforms, you know, we can choose to just keep it going and just gossip or talk about it, or use it as a learning moment, you know, where we can bring another light to it. And I like that you said everything that you said right now, because it is like that. And you notice like how those type of shows that we watch, and then you look at a whole different race of people. There's don't be like, you'll see you'll see the marriage shows and this, you know what I mean? Like all these cute little nice shows, and when it comes to us, see females fighting over a dude that's doing them both wrong, or just like not in the best light. And we'd be like, yeah. Because when I told my friend he didn't know much about Kevin Samuels, I said, you know, that one guy. And then he watched it. And the reason why he got into it, because how he was talking to him, he was like, oh, he's great. He ain't stopped watching him since. He's like, he is famous. He is good. But he was so taken back, loving the way that he was coming across. Not even listening to what he's saying, is it valor or anything. He was just the way he was talking to him. I said, that's what draws us in. Because his friend said, a very close friend of his was, they did a live, but you know, Dr. Boyce, that guy that does the financial. Yeah, he was talking, because I like him. I like he'll tell you the business, right? And he was saying, he had the Kevin Sprint on there, and he was saying that before, he said he don't really know what, maybe that could have been his MO, kind of like, because before he wasn't really picking up that same way. And then when I think he started realizing that, and then started becoming a little bit more like, because he didn't know, is he really saying that, like, just to, you know what I mean, because he mean it, or is he just throwing stuff out there to get your, you know, to get people, like, because that's what gets people, the
Yeah,
negative. It's
it
crazy.
is. It is. And when I was, I've been podcasting for over 10 years. And when I first started out and I had some guys on, like my guests early on were more or less 20 something, didn't go to college guys, mostly predominantly men. And a lot of them went in on women. Uh, and it was based on their own personal experience, but they were using that to project upon all women, what they've been through. And the show was very controversial to start. My first like 20 episodes or so were kind of controversial, but people liked it. But it's not who I wanted to be. And I had a friend tell me, he's like, man, your show, you probably could have been the first Kevin Samuels if you really just stuck to that, that what you had going on. But it's not what I wanted. I wanted people to hear the perspective of others. Yeah, I feel like there's a place for people who think that way, but I want something to counteract it so we can find truth in the middle, because most of the time that's where the truth is anyway. And so I guess with him, you just had this one side of things, and all the guys seemed to like it, because not necessarily, like you said, it wasn't because of what he was saying, it was because how he was kind of quote unquote putting women in their place. And that thrilled a lot of guys, and that's why he has so many male fans who, I'm pretty sure are torn up by the fact that he's no longer here.
Yeah. And understandably, I mean, if that's what they liked, and but I don't know. I don't know what his mission would have continued on being like when he was here, because people change, people evolve, people get worse. You never know, right? What did he plan on? Really, would he have ever seen? Like, there was so many people that said, that came forward and said, he really helped us with our marriage, with this, and that. And then obviously you had a group of people that said, which that was just over the top, but because that's somebody's son, family, and all that, and he's a life. But
and because he went in on men too, and of course, a lot of people see the clips, where he's bashing the women, but he went in on men as well, and so it wasn't always one sided. But of course, people want to show certain clips to make it look a certain way and everything. So, and I don't agree with some of the things he said to some of the guys, but I mean, it kind of is what it is, because again, some of it was rooted in truth, but because it came off as hurtful, people didn't want to buy into it. I remember he went in on a guy because he was overweight, but he expected to have like a top-notch woman, even though he wasn't considered quote unquote top-notch himself from a physical perspective. And so he talked about the guy's weight and everything, and a lot of people got upset over that. But when you look at it logically, and I'm just being logical here, I'm not saying that, I'm a big guy myself. I'm not saying that a big guy can't have a top-notch woman or anything like that. But if you have a guy who's overweight and a guy who's in shape, and they're both trying to get the same woman, odds are the guy that's in shape may have a better opportunity. I'm not saying it'll work out that way, but he may have an advantage in the situation. And so those are things that are kind of like common sense things, but because of the delivery, people are like, nah, that's wrong. You shouldn't tell a guy that, this, that, and the other, and all that stuff. And again, I'm not saying that what he said was true, but I can see where his I can see the wheels turning as far as how he's thinking.
Yeah, for sure. Like how you explained it right now, I think that like common sense that we can hear, and if we're from coming from a like a genuine place, like even the way you said it, somebody can receive that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're just telling them like, look, just think about it. Like, what like you said, not saying you can't, because you know what I mean? You just never know, you can't call it, but be realistic. Like, kind of like, well, like consider it.
Yeah, because if you take yourself out of it, you can see it. Like if you have two cars, I live in Mississippi. It's hot, okay? If I have two identical cars, one of them has air conditioning, one of them doesn't. All right. I'm going to choose a car with air conditioning every time. Okay? That's just from a logical perspective. It doesn't mean the other car can't get me where I have to go. It doesn't mean I can't roll down the windows and maybe circulate some air that way and be okay. But I'm gonna choose the one with air conditioning. So when you look at some of the scenarios that he has, where he's comparing maybe a fat guy to a skinny guy, or a young woman to an older woman, or something like, he's using the same concept as far as taking two things that are alike, but they have something different, and comparing the two. And most people are going to go this direction, even though you can still be happy with the other one.
Yeah.
So that's what he did most of the time. It was just comparisons that people didn't want to hear, because if you're the person who drives the car by air, all of a sudden you're mad.
Right. I mean, what he did do was he brought something up, like he struck something up, man. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like there right now, and it's like, not saying maybe it needed to be done. You know what I mean? Maybe so get to a better place. But I think like it's like now, where do we go? And without shunning or shutting anyone down, or thinking that we have to have a better mindset. We got to figure out, like, at the end of the day, where's that empathy at? Like, it's not the way you're perceiving it. You're in your feelings, you're mad. It's showing how hurt you've been, how disappointed you've been by it. So it bothers you. And that's why I think it's important that as women too, that because we sometimes the way some women have been brought up, or even men, like you see men in a different light, like, because from the pain, that mother been like, this is that talk about men, and not really, like, they're still human beings, or they didn't get to see their dad be a human, you know what I mean? Make those connections. Like, I was exposed to good men, grandpa, ex-husband, dad. So I knew that even if had been hurt before, that not all men are bad. Because first of all, I don't even know all men, so that isn't logical, right? I haven't dated all men. I can't use my own percentage or my cousin's percentage and say,
exactly,
well, majority of them are, so then that must mean they are. Like, that don't even make sense. That makes sense. Even if there's one in the bunch, it still don't make sense, because it's not all.
You're right. And I think, and the main thing that people need to look at, and it's the hardest thing to get people to do, is that even if you are someone who have had bad luck finding a man or finding a woman, for a long period of time, at some point you got to realize it may be you. Okay. Yeah. And people don't want to do that. They always want to say men ain't this, women ain't that, when all along it's them. Yeah. Okay. Something about their selection process that's probably the problem. I mean, when I was single for a couple of years prior to meeting my wife, and for those 2 years, I had a lot of dates. I didn't have a lot of success because my selection process was messed up. All right, I'm looking at everything between the nipples and the knees, focusing on that, when I should have been trying to find somebody that had their head on straight. And so we just don't want to admit to that. When some women don't want to admit that, okay, I was attracted to his car and his clothes and his swag. Some men don't want to admit that, okay, she had the nice hips, lips, and fingertips, and that's what attracted me to her. And once you realize your selection process may be flawed, then at that point, you can make better decisions when it comes to dating. It doesn't mean you're going to always be successful, but you'll probably have a better chance of finding what you're looking for. But too many times we want to point the finger at other people, and that's a huge problem.
Yeah. So they're lacking and willing to grow, because that's how we grow. Like, can't really worry about what everybody else is thinking. It's like, you're human, you're gonna make mistakes, but it's like, it's not where you been, it's where you're going. Like, how are you gonna get there? You're just gonna keep, your picker's probably off. You may have to just do something different. It's okay. Like, we put in energy in more things in ourselves, or the things that we should, like your car and this. Like, I see people be so just precise about things, and you got to take care of it like this, and don't even put that gas in that, just certain stuff, and then you don't even put that type of care to your own.
They absolutely do not. I've seen people study a cell phone plan harder than they study to learn how to be a better, significant other,
right,
and things of that nature. And so it's just a matter of us focusing on ourselves, having a plan. First of all, you got to have a plan. There's so many people who, all right, if you get a good man or good woman, you don't even know what to do. Do I walk it? Do I feed it? You don't even know what to do, because you don't have a plan. Outside of maybe taking pictures in matching pajamas for Christmas or something, no one knows what to do when they find that special someone. So if you don't have a plan in mind, leave these people alone. you
Right.
know, and let them find love somewhere else instead of wasting their time. But
Well put.
that's another show.
Right? Exactly, another one. Oh man. Who what do you think that where do you okay, this is a good one. And I probably know it, but where do you think because I know we just covered the fact that maybe a lot of men that but even the ones that believed in his message, because the way it is if they read a scripture. And like, is it really because the way that he spoke, or they really believing this stuff? But like we said, a lot of it was true. But then there's a lot of men that like that video. You saw that video I sent you. What that fellow was saying.
Hmm.
How did you feel about what he? It looked like he did his research, and it looked like. But you know, people can be well spoken, just like Kevin was, very intelligent, well spoken,
Yeah.
and you were fooled by that. I mean, you didn't even listen to one word, but it sounded good, so it must be true. You know what I mean? So it's like, what do you think about what the fellow is saying?
I think that well overall I think what Kevin was doing, he was a lot of people considered him the voice of men. Men that liked him, okay, thought that he was essentially their voice. He was saying the things that they wanted to say, but only he was a little more eloquent in saying it.
Right.
And all in all, he was a if you are a guy that has a certain viewpoint on women or think that men should somehow rule over women to a certain extent, then I can see how you can easily be a fan of Kevin. Okay, I can see that because the way that he dominated and controlled the people that called into his show gave him this aura of power, which is something that a lot of men tend to enjoy. But as far as some of the things he said, if you can take his videos and have someone intelligently break it down as far as what's being said, you can actually get some things out of it, whether it's teaching someone something that's positive or teaching someone what not to do, so to speak. So he served a purpose
Yeah.
for sure. But what you did with that purpose really depended on your mindset as an individual. And because so many people are in a bad space when it comes to relationships between black men and black women, they just kind of took things and ran the wrong way with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said about that. I like that you were saying if somebody took it and like translated, and then it depends on that individual how you took it, like what mind state you're in, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, it's all about mindset because
yeah.
I've seen someone get mad at a text message, and I'm like, okay, there's no emotion in a text message, but because of how you're feeling at the time, you read it and they ask me, what are you doing? I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure it didn't sound like that. So where you are in your head determines how you receive information and distribute it. And so many people going in are already messed up in the head. So therefore the message is messed up.
Yeah, for sure. I could totally see that. Just the mindset you're in. Like you said, what do you take? What do you do with it now? Like you got to take it and just be. And that's the part where I got concerning, where I sat here and I felt away, right? Because I started thinking about God. I started thinking about Jesus and stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, it's like he was talking to me. It's like, we're not supposed to be just like, I understand you respect this man and he really helped you. You're supposed to be like following, like it. I ain't seen nobody even give Jesus this type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
God, this type of, so and that's what really bothered. That's what made it hit for me. You believe in God or not, that's what made it hit for me. And then I was like, I find this just could be problematic. And I'm gonna say this because I don't know if you notice, like a lot of and I don't even do the news like that, but the media out there, you're coming across a lot of these like black men and violence with black women as far as murder and throwing
Yeah.
babies off of bridges and stuff. And I don't know what that's about, mental health / a lot of issues that are going on in the world, let alone the community. But it's like, it's just going to come off like it can make somebody angry. Like you said, the mindset, where are they at? And I'm seeing a lot of aggression. Like this one man, he did a video the other day. And I don't know if you saw this, the Judge Tolerant, the really pretty older black woman. She's like, I think there's two of Tolliver. I think it's Judge Tolliver, one of the judges. And she was telling the lady, like the man was clearly telling her, I don't want to be with you no more. I'll always be here for you, but I'm done. Like, and then she was like, just looking at him, she's like, She gonna make me hurt him. And the judge was like, no. Did you hear what he said? He just told you he don't want to be with you. He's trying to get her to see, like, he told you this when he didn't come to the when you got in that car accident, when you got shot, blah, blah, blah. I was like, man, but she wouldn't receive it. And when I saw this video, I was like, okay. And then he pops in and says, why is it hard for women to get with a man or listen or something he was saying about or to take a message? I can't remember exactly what he said, but that was the highlight where he's like, why is it so hard for women to receive a message or something? And I was just kind of like looking at the screen like, I don't know. Why is it so hard for men? I don't know. It's back and forth. Like some men can't do either. What was your point? It's like, but that's what I keep seeing from this particular and others. Like women, like what's so wrong with, like, that's not everybody's. I'm a very logical person, Quincy. I always work with logic and intentions, like where is it coming from, but definitely logic. And if it don't make sense,
I'm the same way. I've always been rooted in logic, and maybe it's the Scorpio in me. I don't know. Depends on who you ask. But but there are a lot of people who, I guess because of how they're raised, they don't seem to understand that. I don't think they understand their options in life. Okay. Sometimes some of the aggression that we see is rooted in a person's ego. There are some men who get aggressive with women who try to leave them because they don't want to look bad from having a woman leave them. And you have some aggression that comes from people who are used to getting their way or not understanding consequences or not understanding, again, that they have options. Their self-esteem is so low that they think they can't do any better. So therefore they hang on to something that's not fruitful, And I didn't see this particular video. Some of you talking about Judge Lynn Toler from Divorce Court.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. She was my TV crush at one time. But we see it constantly as far as some of the violence that goes on, domestic violence incidents that happen. And it's sad. It is truly sad, especially when you hear the whole story and find out it was something that really could have just been prevented. Yeah. All right. That wasn't even necessary. And when it gets to the extreme where a man is killing a wife or killing a kid or something like that to hurt someone, that's just so sad. It's so sad. And it is a mental health issue, but I think we overuse mental health issues. The phrase, because it's almost like a blanket way of just saying it is what it is, and that's not the case. It's something that can be resolved if people are reached a lot sooner in life than, trying to reason with an adult who's already been messed up in the head for years, as opposed to reaching people when they're kids and teaching them something so that when they grow up, they understand that, all right, if this person rejects you, there's someone who's going to want you. There are 8 billion people on this planet. Somebody wants you. Don't get so focused on this one person that you're willing to throw your life away. Everything. This is not related to Black people, but just like the incident with this lady in Alabama who was a cop that broke the prisoner out so they can go on the run across the country and everything. You mean to tell me that was her best option? That's your best option. The day before you're supposed to retire, you're going to break out a 6'9" prisoner that anybody can see in a room and try to run across the country with them. So you have people who feel like, okay, this is all I got. So therefore, I'm going to seize this chance, regardless of the outcome, regardless if someone ends up getting killed or if there's violence involved. And it's sad. Yeah. It's really sad because no one has taught that person how to improve their level of self-esteem. Yep.
So happy you said that. You're right, because it does start in when you're when you're younger, from like a kid. You have. Like I just was talking to my son the other day. I asked, I check in with him and stuff, and he came to me, had certain things about how he feels about himself, and he kind of referenced to himself as thinking he was how he felt about himself. He's like, I guess I'm all right. I was like, first of all, you're the child of you're mine and your dad's child, so obviously you're handsome. But he thought I was just saying that because of his mom. I'm like, oh, I'm serious. Like, you're very handsome, trust me. And but I was like, let me talk to you some more. And I'm telling him, like, like when girls are a certain way and they don't receive it, it doesn't mean it's you, right? I probably shouldn't have said this, but I was just trying to make it make sense and see if I can catch myself. I said, girls are stupid. I was like, but in my head, I'm thinking about these little girls. I'm like, they're kind of stupid, but that's still like those things we still got to catch. It's sending the wrong message, right?
Yeah.
But I think he understood where I was coming from, but I had to let him know, like, because those things will. I'm not going to tell you anything else but the truth. Will happen. Those days will happen, but you can't personalize them and think it something wrong with you, and that it's got to be you. And what did I do? Or I'm not good enough, or I'm not handsome. I said no. Some people just don't. Maybe not. You really can't even sum it up because you're gonna find your stupid girls, they don't know any better. Hormones, they're with their little friends, giggling like ew, or just doing different stuff. And it's not ever you. That's just part of life. And that's why I'm just trying to, make sure I build my, my young Black man up too. So he knows that, so he doesn't have to be what we're seeing right now, where it seems like these healings are coming in now, but it's kind of little already.
And it has to happen early in life, even earlier than, when we were children, because it's so easy for kids to compare their lives to other people now because of social media. When I was growing up, I didn't have social media. So the only thing I knew was what was around me. Like, for example, okay, I'm 5'6". That's not considered tall by any means. Two of my best friends in high school, one was 6'2", the other was 6'1". I never even knew I was short until social media. because I didn't care, right? Because I didn't care, and because there was no one there to tell me. But then when social media comes around, you start seeing the memes. What do you call a guy under 6 foot? A friend. And all this crazy stuff. And so kids now have this daily reminder in some shape, form, or fashion that they're inadequate in some type of way. And if you don't reach them and let them know that, hey, we're all unique and we all can't be tall, we all can't be, muscular or whatever it is that they're seeing, you got to reach them and let them know that they're good enough and they're good enough for someone, but they just can't get caught up in what they're seeing, because we're constantly inundated with pictures and things of, celebrities and perfect bodies and, perfect lives with the big houses and the big cars. And not all of it is real.
Nope,
but it gets etched in our brain that if you don't have that life, you're somehow a failure. And that can have a very bad effect on someone, especially if you have lack the mental stability to keep it all together.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. It's crazy because us as adults, we see it and can feel it sometimes. And we definitely have to stop and take a look like, well, let's help our kids, because then they're over here getting bullied and going through the motions. That's a different subject, but that young lady the young Black lady that committed suicide, and that's the stuff that I really think people like, we got to do better for our youth. If we can't do it for ourselves, pull it together, muster it together, because this is not what we're supposed to take what we learn, make it better, move on. It's supposed to progress. Not regress.
And it takes understanding the time we live in right now. We have I'm a 70s baby. And so my generation, I don't think has a full grasp of what younger generations may be going through as far as, kids are concerned. Because if you get bullied at school, if you got bullied at school in the 70s or the 80s, once you left school, 9 times out of 10, you were good until the next day. You went home, you did whatever you do. But now bullying follows you because now there's social media. So while you're at home, you're getting tagged and stuff, you're getting messages, people talking about you. And so it's constant. And we as parents have to realize that and be able to help our kid in whatever fashion that it may be, as far as, their self-esteem and making sure that they're not being torn down to the point of suicide. Because the first time I heard about a child 9 years old committing suicide, that blew me away. I'm like, how does a kid even understand what suicide is?
Exactly. That was the young I heard too. It was like 8. And I was just like, how do you even know about that? Like what to do? And that's an option.
But when you have access to a smartphone and all this information out in the world or whatever, a 9-year-old ain't really 9. They're a lot older as far as what they're being exposed to.
Yeah.
And they're feeling, inadequate at such an early age when they don't even realize how much, more life has to offer because
Yeah.
someone didn't reach them in time. So, man, we have to start planting seeds a lot earlier than
Yeah.
when we were growing up because you're in competition with so much out there.
Yeah. Yeah. You just know how it is. It's set up. The world is set up, and you know what they're gonna be up against, and you got to build them because you're like it's gonna be like this. It's gonna be, you know what I mean? It ain't all rainbows and all
Hmm.
that stuff. So just be ready. Be a warrior. Be ready. Enjoy life, but don't be. Just know it's gonna be coming. They're gonna try to eat you alive, tear you down. But we're not about building up in this world. It's crazy to me. That's why we're talking about empathy today, sympathy. And I think if we had a world, if we just in general as human beings have more empathy for one another in this world, because when you have empathy, you understand, you get it, and we're not going to do those. You see people more humanized on a more human level. We could do better. But kids think it's funny to base. Like when my son telling me certain things, I'm like, but who was it funny for? Was it funny for that person, even though it's just a joke? Like at whose expense? Like stuff like that. Like that. People go back and forth. They make a show out of it. Basing on each other. To me personally, it made me take a look at myself. Like, do I watch these? Not really, but sometimes. You know what I mean? And it made me think like we done found a whole way to brand everything that could work against us of how to tear somebody down, but how's that supposed to be good? I don't know. At whose expense?
Yeah. I mean, when it's all said and done, Kevin Samuels is just a fraction, the problems that people have with him or
Mhm.
had with him is just a fraction of the things we deal with on a daily basis in the black community. Um, as far as black men and black women learning how to deal with each other, making sure our children are protected and informed with real world information and not just, the garbage that they consume on television or media. And it's so much going on, and it's a lot more complicated than a lot of people realize as far as just dancing on the grave of one man that you didn't like.
Right.
And then for every Kevin Sam, there are going to be three more to come in his place.
Oh
It's going
yeah.
to be someone else who pops up
See him now.
who takes the
Yeah.
who takes the mantle and runs with it. And so people have to understand that instead of just trying to to focus all your energy into hate, try to either understand or better yet, take the message that you disagree with and explain to others why you think the message is wrong and try to, turn it into a positive, turn it into a teaching opportunity.
I
And
love it.
that's when I first started watching his show. I got a lot of content for his show for my podcast. And we never had any knockdown, drag out arguments on my show about anything that he discussed because I try to present it in an intelligent manner that wouldn't offend people, and we were able to have a productive conversation. And I think more people can do the same instead of just going all in and focusing on hate. Try
Hmm.
to take what you don't like and preach against it.
Yep. Well said. Well said. It's not as hard as we make it. Really not. But I do appreciate it. I know we got to get you, I'm looking over here at the time and make sure because I can keep going and going, but I know that like you said, there's more work to be done. This is not like just, it's not going to be more of Kevin's,
Yeah,
recipes, but condolences to his family and everyone.
absolutely.
And yeah, I think like for me, I think it's something that I want to, I think open up more and have these conversations like this where it can be done. I'm not saying he was totally like completely, maybe a lot of stuff he was wrong on, like, oh, even if he would have said it nicely, it's like, oh, but that's with anybody. We're not always going to agree with a lot of things. Some things are just flat out wrong. But then what do you do next?
Yeah,
We've heard worse from
exactly.
somebody,
Exactly.
right? But thank you so much. Hey Quincy, did you want to enlighten the listeners, because this is going to go up on the audio and all that too, and remind them where they can find you when your show airs?
Yes, thank you. I mean, first of all, I appreciate you inviting me on. It's always a pleasure chopping it up with you. We always have great conversations.
Right. Yeah, most
And
definitely.
people can find me, they can search social media, hashtag talk to Q, talk the number two Q. That's one way. Or you can go to my website, talktoq.com, and find me there. All my social media information is there. I'm on YouTube at Talk to Q. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm in the game for a long time, so I'm coming up on show number 1,000, and I think on July, the second week of July, I think. So
Okay.
there's plenty
Well,
of
at least you
content
do
out
something.
there.
Yeah, let me know if you celebrate that in some kind of way, or if you do something. Most
Definitely.
give you a shout out.
I appreciate it.
Yes, most definitely. Well, thank you once again, and to the listeners, everybody, thank you for tuning in. And just I hope that you took something from this, and it was like a learning moment or something to enlighten you and to understand. Nobody's here to attack. We're all just really trying to understand, and we're hurt people. Sometimes it hurt people, but let's get to a better place. Until next time, this is Behind the Mic with Brandy J and Quincy from Talking. God, I'm just
Talk the
horrible.
key.
No, acting like take, cut. All right, guys. Until next time. Love you all. Peace. Mwah.